The point guard position has evolved significantly over the years, transitioning from pure playmaker in the old days to its current form, which is more of a hybrid. Each player who suits up with the position has a different way of attacking it. Only a few true pass-first point guards remain. Some have shifted to a score-first mentality almost altogether. However, a majority of them sit somewhere in the middle. Today, I'm not here to judge which style fits the current NBA landscape best. I'm here to judge who plays the position best. Let's break down the top 10 point guards in the NBA ahead of the 2023 season. Number 10, James Harden. When I constructed these rankings, there were 5 or 6 other players who had a legitimate case to crack this list over Harden. In the end, I had to roll with the guy who led the league in assists last year, even if many of those dimes were just basic entry passes into Joel Embiid, who scored in isolation. Harden clearly isn't the player he once was, and the lack of postseason production has always been a major knock on his game. But at 33 years old, you can't argue with 21, 10, and 6 as the second option. One area of unexpected growth we saw from him last season was a spike in three-point shooting. It had been hanging around the low 30s for a couple seasons and jumped all the way up to 38.5% last year, which was the second best season of his career in that regard. While there are obvious negatives to his style of play, Harden still earns a spot in the top 10 at this moment. Number 9, De'Aaron Fox. The 2022 Clutch Player of the Year earned his spot on this list with by far the best season of his career, averaging 25 points, 6 assists, and 4 rebounds while leading the Kings back to the playoffs and making Sacramento relevant again. I went back and forth quite a bit on whether to bump Fox to number 8, but he ultimately landed at 9, which is still extremely respectable considering the talent at this position around the league. Fox is arguably the quickest player in the NBA, and I'm not sure there's a more deadly first step in the association than his. The three-point shooting is never going to be great, that's just not his game. But for the first time in his career, he shot over 50% from the field last season, which demonstrates a much improved shot IQ and an overall maturity to his game, which passes the eye test. At only 25 years old, there's still room for improvement for Fox. I wouldn't be shocked if he pushed towards the top half of this list by the end of next season. Number 8, Trae Young. De'Aaron Fox had a better season than Trae Young last year. I think that's fair to say. However, even for a quote-unquote down year, Young still put up ridiculous numbers, racking up 26 and 10 on a nightly basis. The team's success just wasn't there for Atlanta last year, and I know a lot of people have been quick to either blame Trae or the organization for that. In reality, I think many parties are at fault, but since the midseason hire of Quinn Snyder, things are looking up. The biggest knock on Young is his efficiency, in my eyes. He's a career 35% three-point shooter and 43.7% shooter from the field. Those are areas of his game that he desperately needs to improve, but he's still averaged 25.5 points per game throughout his career. What a surprising amount of people don't seem to realize is the best part of Trae's game isn't his scoring, it's his playmaking. When we talk about the best passers in today's game, his name rarely gets brought up, but he deserves to be in that conversation. With some fine-tuning of his game, Young could easily be a top 5 point guard in this league. Number 7, Tyrese Haliburton. I'm sure ranking Haliburton this high will surprise a lot of people, but if you watch the young All-Star play consistently last season, you know he's just scratching the surface of truly elite potential. Haliburton is one of those extremely rare, true pass-first point guards I referenced at the beginning of this video. In fact, it's fair to say he's the only one left in the league besides the original point guard, Chris Paul. Tyrese averaged 10.4 assists per game this season on a pretty mediocre Indiana squad, and with all due respect to James Harden, I'm giving Haliburton significantly more credit for his passing numbers, especially when you realize he averaged only 2.5 turnovers per game. Despite not being a score-first guard, Haliburton can still put the ball in the basket, as he averaged 20 points per game while shooting 40% from 3. This time next year, we could be talking about a top 3 or 4 point guard in the league. Number 6, Kyrie Irving. Love him or hate him, nothing about Kyrie's game has dropped off, even remotely. The best ball handler the NBA has ever seen is coming off a season in which he played alongside multiple ball-dominant players in 2 different situations and still put up insane numbers. Between Brooklyn and Dallas, Kyrie averaged 27 points, 5.5 assists, and 5 rebounds per game while shooting 38% from behind the arc. His running mate with the Mavs will appear higher on this list, as both of them are true point guards. While I have my doubts about that pairing working out from a fit perspective, Irving's talent is undeniable. He's earned this spot in my rankings. Number 5, Ja Morant. Another superstar with off-court issues. Similar to Irving, you can't knock what Morant does on the floor. Ja is one of the best athletes the league has ever seen at the point guard position, but his game has evolved to more than just that. Morant averaged 26 points, 6 rebounds, and a career-high 8 assists last year. Just like quite a few players on this list, his three-point shooting leaves a lot to be desired, but the dynamism of the rest of his game makes up for it. It was a really tough call who to put at 5 and 6 between Morant and Kyrie. While Irving's floor is higher than Ja's and he's probably the more complete player, Ja's ceiling is higher at this stage of their careers. When he's at his best, he's the better player, which ultimately earned him this ranking. Number 4, Damian Lillard. Lillard's antics with his trade request this offseason have resulted in a lot of animosity towards the star guard, but from a strictly on-court perspective, Dame is on another level than the players who appear below him on this list. Lillard is coming off a ridiculous season in which he averaged 32 points, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds per game. His elite production has never translated to team success for Portland, which is why he'll likely be suiting up in a Heat jersey in a few months. But he's undoubtedly one of the most talented players in the league. From a seemingly endless reel of clutch shots to his underrated playmaking, ranking Lillard anywhere below 4th among the best point guards in the NBA is hard to justify. In fact, most people have him 3rd. However, I'm giving the edge to a much younger guy. Number 3, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. SGA helped put OKC back on the map this season. A lot of people believe he should have won Most Improved Player, but it's hard for an already elite player to win the award when he's competing with a guy who just wasn't great before. Shai averaged 31.4 points, 5.5 assists, and 4.8 rebounds per game, earning his first All-Star nod and first team All-NBA. What's even crazier about those numbers is Shai put them up without getting any type of consistent production from behind the arc. Gilgeous-Alexander averaged fewer than 1 made 3 per game on just 2.5 attempts. It's not like he was letting them fly. Threes just aren't a part of his game, and he was still a top 4 scorer in terms of points per contest. OKC has an incredible amount of talent on their squad, and with SGA leading the way, they could be series contenders sooner rather than later. Number 2, Luka Doncic. While almost all of Luka's stats support an argument that he's better than the top player on this list, I just can't quite put him there considering the consistent contributions to team success that the other guy has. That's not even meant to be a significant knock on Luka, who's still very young. It's just the truth. The Mavericks have not been nearly as successful with him running the show as Dallas fans would like up to this point, and it's not even all his fault. Other guys have to step up. Doncic put up otherworldly numbers last year, averaging 32.4 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists per game. To put it simply, he was the entirety of Dallas's offense until Kyrie Irving showed up before the trade deadline. The one significant knock on Luka's game is his three-point efficiency, as the superstar has never shot better than 35.3% from behind the arc. Even so, it's not a large enough concern to justify putting him anywhere lower than 2 on this list. In fact, I didn't even consider it. At this point, a lot of people believe he's already the best point guard in the world. I'm not quite there, but it's a matter of when Luka claims that spot, not if. Number 1, Steph Curry. You all knew this was coming at this point. The best shooter the game has ever seen is still the best point guard in the league, even if his days on the throne are numbered. Curry put up fantastic stats at 34 years old last season, racking up 29 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists. He also returned to truly elite form from behind the arc after a slight dip in 2021, shooting a ridiculous 42.7% from 3. The Warriors dynasty may be coming to an end, but every time Curry steps on the floor, he reminds us why he's one of the best to ever do it. As of right now, he reigns supreme as the best point guard in the NBA. That wraps up my list for the top 10 point guards in the NBA entering the 2023 season. Stay tuned for the top 10 shooting guards next week.